Hey, everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I am very happy that you're joining me for the fourth in our series of special and different podcasts with my friends, Richie Burke and Dave Will here about,
I think I'm getting a little looser, man. Now we can, right. I'm ready. Let's
It's our last one. We're finally ready to go. Let's do this.
Last one? That we're doing this for every chapter. What's happening here?
We're getting cut off after this. Mike's gonna bring on some heavier hitters after this one.
We gotta step it up to talk about the rest of the book. Yeah.
But Mike, all right, go on.
So anyway, as those guys just alluded, we are talking about my book, Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, which is coming out on November 30th, 2021. You can buy it on Amazon or anywhere you get your books. You can also buy it on my website at mikemalatested.com. Today, we are here to talk about a chapter out of part 4 of the book, which is called Breakthrough. The part is called Breakthrough, and this chapter is called The 5 Words. And this chapter is about my experience with a guy named Dan Sullivan, who is the founder of, well, sometimes he calls himself the founder, and sometimes he calls himself the co-founder of the Strategic Coach program, which is an entrepreneurial coaching program that is exceptional. And I was in it for 6 or 7 years. And while I was in it, I joined it a little over a year after Butch passed away, and I was in the Valley, and I was looking for a way out of the Valley. And it had been referred to me by a messenger that there's another chapter on the messenger, which is just one of these fortuitous sort of convergences. But I was in the program, and every time we would go to a workshop, we would get a bunch of CDs from Dan, and when they still made CDs, and I would listen to the CDs on the way back home. So I had about a 90-minute drive, and I was driving home, and he was talking about this high school reunion that he went to, and Dan was probably 70 or late 60s at the time, and maybe it was his 50th high school reunion or something like that, and he was talking about the crowd and the people and how he felt so different than his classmates. Like he felt like he still had something to live with, and the people around him were sort of figuring out how to wind it down. And he said something that really just smacked me right in the face, almost to the point where I felt like I needed to pull over and suck and sort of soak it in. And he was describing some of the things that his classmates were saying, and he said, I determined a long time ago that my future is my property. It's not my mom's, it's not my dad's, it's not my siblings, it's not, my wife's, it's not the people I work with, it's mine. And I've accepted that, and it's helped me to realize that I'm the one, as the entrepreneur or who needs to create the future that I want for myself, so that I can figure out how to get everybody to help me achieve that future and make it real. And it was just a point of time in my life where as I've explained in earlier episodes of our Special and Different thing, that I didn't know what a future had. I didn't have any goals anymore. I thought that the future was only going to be like the past so far. Grind. I wasn't accepting responsibility for what my future would be like. I wasn't doing my job properly as a leader and an entrepreneur. And I wanted somebody to just come along and make it feel right to me. Just tell me what to do. And Dan said, my future is my property. And I said, damn it. That's what I've been missing. Like, it seems so simple, right? Your future is your property. Go ahead, make it what you want it to be. But I didn't see it. And when he said it, I thought, you're right. And I'm not going to say I immediately got to work on it, because that would sound like I was some, I don't know, better than I am. But I was thinking about it all the time. And ultimately, those 5 words made me understand that it's up to me to design the things that I want. And then once I know what I want, I need to design the things that are going to get me there. And it's just had a tremendous transformational impact on me, both as a leader and as an entrepreneur. And I think, I don't think it's I don't know if it's too big of a leap to say that, those 5 words really changed the trajectory of my life and my business. And I know, some of you may be thinking, well, you can't make your future your property. I mean, there's so many things you can't control, and this can happen, that can happen. And yeah, those thoughts all went through my mind. But what I can make happen is the things that I can control. And if I can put them out there and I can decide what those are, then I can work really hard to make them reality. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. So Dave, what do you think?
Well, I was really happy to see that Dan Sullivan got a chapter in your book, because he is, in one of the previous episodes I mentioned a Sherpa or a guide, and there's no better guide in my book than Dan Sullivan. The Strategic Coach is just this amazing program. I think it's underrated. I don't think it gets as much popularity as some of the people that are really going for that popularity rating. Like, there's a lot of coaches out there that are really there's a lot of pizzazz, right? Yeah, Dan Sullivan is not pizzazz. Here you got an older gentleman with amazing stories. He's like Gandalf. It's like Dan Sullivan is a lot like Gandalf. Did you know Dan is planning to live to 160, I think it is?
156.
156, yeah.
I did know that, yes.
Totally different perspective of the world.
Right.
And he's a bit of a weirdo. No, that's not the right word. He's an intellect, right? Even as a kid, he talks. So I had him on my podcast as well, the EO 360 podcast. There's my little plug. But Dan Sullivan was on, and he tells these stories of growing up on the farm and imagining and dreaming.
Yeah, and walking through the forest, and yeah.
That's how he played.
Right.
Imagined and dreamed. And anyway, so I'm glad he and I'm not surprised to hear those 5 words. My future is my property. So what this made me think of, aside from just glowing and basking in the thought of like all things Dan Sullivan, that sounds a little creepy, doesn't it? Maybe we should cut that part. No, don't cut anything. So what that got me thinking about was, there was a time when I was a young chap, a young strapping buck, and I was told I was 20. I think I was 26, and I was an intern working for SAP, huge multi-billion-dollar German ERP system software company. And my manager, I was an intern, a business school intern, and my manager put his arm around me and encouraged me, as on my last day, walked me out, put his arm around me. This is like 1996 or something like that. Puts his arm around me and says, Dave, good job this summer. The most harmful words in the English language, a good job. So anyway, good job, Dave, this summer. Listen, I encourage you to, when you're walking through the halls, walk a little faster and smile less, because perception is reality. So translation, people don't think you're very busy because you're having too good a time here. And so fix that, and you're in a go place. In fact, if you can see over my shoulder, I think this is an audio, but if you look over my shoulder here, I have a sign that says, walk slow, smile more. And it's a sign my son just made me this past year, even though I've been preaching that since I was coached to walk fast and smile less. So I built a company on the antithesis of that advice, which brought me to success. Now, the reason walk slow, smile more brought me to success is because I don't know how to do it otherwise. There's a little window in there where I did try to do it, and I got fired from my job. Mm-hmm. I was a chameleon. I tried to do it in a way that somebody else wanted or suggested I do it. I was trying to live my future like it was somebody else's property. And so what I did
Nice.
instead was embraced the fact that this is my property and I'm going to put a big phallic statue out in the garden if I want to, because that's what's important to me. Now, I do not have a big phallic
Did you
statue
do
out.
that? Okay.
No,
Just curious.
that was just an example. But what I did do is I built a company on the antithesis of the culture that you would find at SAP. And it worked for me. It worked because it gave me an environment where I could thrive and build a great organism that we ended up turning into something valuable. So that was my takeaway from specifically chapter 24, the 5 words, my future is my property.
Well, thanks for
Do it
sharing
your
that,
way,
because
man.
it was really interesting that the way you said that, because it's so true, right? He wasn't saying, your future is my property or my future is your property. He wasn't telling me in this thing what it should be. He was just saying, whatever you want it to be, start making it that, which is what you did based on.
You know what words everybody hates to hear for exactly this reason? The phrase, you know what you should do?
Yeah.
Anything that starts with you know what you should do is like
Right.
instantly just everybody shuts down, because you know what? That's not my future. Maybe I'm just closed to the world. I don't know. What do you think, Richie?
One of my first thoughts, and we talked about this in the intro segment that we did as well, which is how entrepreneurship can be over glamorized and things like that. And my first thing was I was a little surprised at how hard this hit Mike at that point in his career. Because Mike, let me know if I'm wrong, but at this time your company's probably doing, maybe 20-ish million in revenue, or probably above the 10 mark. You're running this company. I think most people from the outside would have looked at you and been like, oh, this guy's doing really well. I mean, statistically, you were doing really well, and you probably put that persona out there to an extent, but just showing that, not everyone has it figured out and everyone has their own struggle. So, I mean, the first thing that hit me was I was a little surprised at how profound that a guy like you would have found that at that point in time.
Interesting. Okay.
I can see that for someone starting off, but no, I mean, I think it just shows how open you were in this book too, and I'm sure a lot of other people at that point, felt that way, because really, who does have things figured out? But I think another thing, and a sad thing is a lot of people, they have dreams, and Dave, you were touching on, like, I'm blanking on the guy's name, the guy who was in the chapter right now. What was his name?
Dan Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Dan
Yeah.
Sullivan.
Sullivan, about, how he used to dream and dream big. And I think a lot of people start off on that initially, and then, those dreams don't happen, or people tell them they can't happen, or they get discouraged in one way or another. And then they just kind of stop dreaming and they coast through life a little bit. And I think it's important that people keep dreaming, and those dreams should change and evolve over time. But that's important because you can create your own future. And I was Googling this statistically when you guys were talking, because I've known these stats. I just forgot what they were, but it's like only 3% of the population sets specific goals, and only 1% writes them down. And there's psychology that when you write stuff down, it's really good for the brain. It wires your brain towards achieving those things. And that means 97% of people are essentially just kind of coasting with no goals. And it's really sad that that's what happens to people. So I don't know what the main takeaway is, other than the fact that, I would encourage people to set goals and know that, who you are today and what you're doing today, it doesn't have to be the future state and you can go out and create that.
I like that, Richie. I like how you brought the dream thing into it, because it made me think about that first chapter in the book called The Seed, where I had this dream when I was a 4-year-old, right, about what it would be like to own a construction business. And of course, I had no idea, as Dave mentioned in that episode, I thought everything just went to sleep at night and you woke up the next day and it just all started all over again. And but I had that dream, and then as I got into, when I finally realized it and started the company, and then got to this point where I was in the valley, and all of a sudden that dream was like a nightmare. It was gone. And you're right, those 5 words probably aren't that remarkable, but when I was just in the right spot at the right time to hear them and get me back on track to understand that what I'm here for. Like I said in the beginning, I think entrepreneurs need to go big, as big as you can go. And I knew that I was not going as big as I could go. I did not know how big I could go, but I knew I was not going as big as I could go. And when I heard him say that, I thought to myself, there's my permission, or my more than a permission. Maybe that's my real purpose. I have to, if I want something different, I have to make it my own. I have to own it. It has to be my property. And that just really changed me a bunch.
Yeah, and I mean, having big dreams that you're excited about, it makes going through all the shit you have to go through a lot easier if it's pushing you towards that. I think if the excitement outweighs the shit you go through, you're gonna be fine in a way. And I know a lot of joy, people say, it's very cliche to say it's about the journey, not the destination, or whatever that saying is, but we get a lot of dopamine releases when we're chasing something and when we're receiving those small wins. It's not really after that big accomplishment. You get a big rush, and then there's usually a come down and a hangover, like not very long after that, when you realize your life's not completely different. But a lot of joy is come from chasing things and those small wins. So it's important, and those will change over time. And some dreams aren't super practical, like my dreams of playing in the NBA growing up as a 6'1" white guy who couldn't move very fast. But there's a lot of other dreams that are extremely attainable, and those should evolve over time.
But can still dunk.
I can. Thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for the plug.
Captain Iron Chest, man. I'm telling you.
Captain Iron Chest.
Oh, man. Well, Richie, Dave, thank you so much for joining me on this special and different episode of the How Did It Happen podcast to talk about my book, Owner Shift, How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, available on Amazon or wherever you buy books, or on my website, MikeMalatesta.com. Check out Richie Burke's podcast, Go Getters Podcast. You can find out more about Richie at ggmm.io. And, of course, Dave Will's fabulous podcast, EO360. You can find out more about Dave at propfuel.com. Guys, it's just been so much fun. Thank you for joining me for these 4 special episodes, and I appreciate you helping me understand my book better through your experiences as well.
Thanks, man. Super fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great seeing you, Dave. It was fun hanging out with you and meeting you today as well.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did It Happen podcast.